You can't put all of your budget into one huge influencer and just think, yep, that's it, I've done my influencer marketing for this campaign. It does sort of filtrate into every area, and it's the exciting thing about the industry right now. Even I think about the agencies we work with all types of agencies, from PR, digital, media, creative. It doesn't sit in one place and doesn't sit in one campaign, which means that the opportunity for brands to be really cool and creative is really there. So I think that's really exciting.
Hello and welcome to Creator, the Influencer Marketing Podcast, episode 4. I'm Jenny, the CEO of Digital Voices, as you can see and might already know. But today I'm very, very excited. We have Emily Traynouth with us from Tribe, which is a brilliant platform. And we're going to talk about how to scale influence marketing using technology. Do you want to introduce yourself and say a little bit more about Tribe?
Thank you. Yeah, it's really good to be here today. So I'm Emily and I manage client partnerships at Tribe. We're a self-serve tech marketplace that connects brands with everyday people to celebrate them through beautiful content.
Emily, let's talk a little bit more about your career story and then we'll talk about the Tribe story. How did you get into the world of influence marketing?
So I actually started my career in financial services and I was selling pensions.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, so bizarre to think about. Yeah, so I was there for 3 years and I thought I was doing really well. And my mentor said to me, Emily, you're really interesting when you talk about the things that you love, but you're really boring when you talk about pensions. And this was directly after a pitch.
And you're like, that's my job. So you're saying I'm boring at my job.
I took a step back and thought, well, okay, how can I expand into different areas that I am interested in, but kind of can transfer my skill set across? And I started to get involved in a lot of women's networks and stuff, because that was really big at the time in financial services, and just kind of ended up launching a blog really randomly. So I wasn't like a big blogger or anything like that.
About women in pensions?
yeah, it was women in business.
Sick.
Yeah, that kind of started, and then I got really, really passionate about social and building my social account, and that alongside blogging just kind of, for me, was like a real sort of creative outlet. And yeah, naturally I sort of thought, well, how can I start to pair my skill set with this passion that I've now got? And I found a tech platform that was really, really early on in terms of influencer marketing with Microinfluencers. And it kind of made complete sense to jump across to the startup world. So I was there for about a year, and then I saw in the press that Tribe were coming to the UK. And I was like, I need to get all over that. Like, I'd heard loads about their model. I knew who they were, and I just knew that it was the right timing in the market. They had the right way round of doing things, of being content first, and I just knew that was really needed in market. So for me, it was a no-brainer to jump over to Tribe. So I've been here for nearly 2.5 years.
So Tribe's been on a pretty phenomenal journey since 2015 when it was founded. It's grown really quickly. It's made some big headlines with investment. It produces a hell of a lot of content on the platform every day. So I'm selling it for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
You only do Instagram and Facebook at the moment, right?
And Twitter as well. I'd probably say 95% of what we do is Instagram.
What do you think made that success happen? What has stood out for you in the Tribe journey since 2015?
Something that I've really learned with this is consistency. We've had the same model since the very beginning, and we've been really consistent with our messaging the entire time, and in terms of what we believe. And our founder, Jules, he's extraordinary, and he's stuck with his vision in terms of the future and where this industry is heading. And he's, fingers crossed, touch wood, he's been pretty accurate every single time. So we've always believed in content first and content up front, and I'll talk to that in a bit. But yeah, like, a lot of the videos that we have that explain Tribe and who we are and how we work are actually from like 2-3 years ago, and we still repurpose them because the messaging is still exactly the same. We're not trying to reinvent anything. We've got a single model that can adapt and obviously flex to different nuances in the market, but we've been really consistent the whole way through.
which is quite rare because I think a lot of startups just pivot based on what's in the news or what is said at Cannes or what they feel the gaps are. And I think often this market is trying to be too reactive.
Definitely. It's such a fast moving market. And I think that's kind of, it almost sort of validates our model in the sense that we're future proofing our business, because we've always believed in the content that the influencers can generate for brands and how powerful that content is. That's not going to go anywhere because, you know, everyone's walking around with these expert quality cameras. And we've had, over 1 billion people graduate from the University of Instagram. But the aspects that are a bit more unpredictable are really around the social platforms. They've based it on the reach and the popularity of the influencer. And the difficulty with that is Facebook owns that land. So they can change things at any time. Obviously, they've already changed the algorithm on Instagram to more relevant content. And although they're bringing out amazing tools and features in terms of further data and analytics, you know, like paid partnerships tag, branded content ads, that kind of stuff, the risk that has with the industry is that will reduce people's organic reach, because Instagram know that people can then pay to boost that up. So it's all a revenue generator mechanism.
So I was reading a lot of tribe stuff, because to prepare for a podcast you should always read or watch things, and there's this consistent focus on the pressure that brands face to create enough content for social, and especially enough localized content. And so they just can't keep up with the demand for the content, which is why content being first makes a big difference. Yes. Because even if people are spending on paid to boost it, you need effective content at the heart of that. If you don't have a good ad or image of your product, you won't have anything to boost that will drive sales. So I really like that you have two streams, right? The influencer campaign stream and a content stream.
Yes, yeah. And you can do both as well. So you can license content from influencer campaigns. We give brands the option to license content, and we don't bundle it in, because from our perspective, what's the point of having hundreds of pieces of content that you might not ever need to use, whereas you might just want to license the top 10 that perform really well on social. And the other part to it is you need effective content that's going to work and engage with consumers, and obviously UGC can provide that. I think it performs up to 7 times better than branded content. But you need a high volume of it, because you need to fight ad fatigue. So that's really where we come into having a high volume of content at speed and being able to scale that really quickly. And the only solution we see to that is your actual customers. Because brands, you know, the current solutions don't really fit it. You look at like creative agencies, they're great for, you know, the big TVCs and really high quality but low volume assets. And obviously it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. Yes. To do that. I've actually seen some crazy figures being quoted to sort of peers of mine. The other options, like, you know, you look at curated UGC networks, and there's these tools that will sort of scour the internet for UGC that already features your brand. The real issue I find with that is 99% of brands don't have that luxury. You know, you think of like Fairy Liquid, people love, you know, and people probably been using it for decades in their households, but they're not posting about that on social. And if they are, the chances are the quality is pretty shit.
A few years ago, there was a big trend for like, don't worry, we'll just have a gifting program. So we'll just gift our product to people who we feel are good brand advocates and ask them to post. Yeah. And I think it was kind of, this is one of the reasons again, a controversial example, but I like the Gymshark example, because they get a lot of content out of their creators, but also do pay them and effectively tell them what to promote. Yeah. Whereas if you're just gifting and you're not paying a creator, you don't have any control over what content they produce. And also, the quality is bad and they don't understand your marketing objectives. So you might have the most amazing snack box, but the person you're sending it to or gifting it to for free doesn't realize that you want that snack box to be put in a gym environment. Yeah. And so then you end up with content that isn't great, but also doesn't fit your marketing objectives. So you don't have the control you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I often think UGC has to be, or micro-influencer content. I don't know if it's kind of the borderline between the two, right?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of started out micro. We're now finding a lot more macro and top tier influencers are coming into the platform, but our typical user is sort of between 3,000 and 100,000 followers. But I completely agree with you. And we see, so it's still an issue today, to be honest. There's so many brands that will gift in exchange of payment. But the issue with that is the influencers aren't legally obliged to actually post. There's not really any control over the content that goes out. You know, it's very risky for businesses. And also influencers, they don't appreciate
free things.
Yeah, they don't appreciate free things. And there is this really, I hate to say it, but sort of tacky side of the industry, which is, you know, here's me, I've got so many followers, you know, look at this protein shake that I've never opened and never used. And I think that's the side that we're really trying to steer away from with driving to actual customers. I remember once that I met with this bikini brand, and I love their bikinis. They're like £200 a pop. But this woman was saying to me, we gifted 8 bikinis to one influencer for her trip. She posted one photo of one of them and kept all the others. And I was like, so you've just lost thousands, you know, of pounds.
But also, the creator in that sense probably thought they were doing a good job. They were like, I was gifted 8 bikinis. I've posted one photo. In my head, this is worth £2,000. Hence, they've got value for money. Yeah. And they probably didn't even run it by for approvals, because you don't need to when there's no legal contract. Yeah. She could also go and work with a competitor the next day. And this, to me is really interesting, because I think we've seen some amazing... So we've been talking to a lot of luxury fashion brands recently, who have, again, been very traditionally gifting.
Yeah. And it makes sense, because their products are so expensive. They feel like the creators would really value that product over payment. Yes. But at the end of the day, there are so many creators that don't have full-time jobs. This is their full-time job. And a Mulberry handbag isn't going to pay your rent.
But also, if you are going to gift, and you're going to gift like a vast volume of luxury goods, because often, even with engaging with like top tier macro creators, say along the levels of like Lydia Millen or In The Fro, really high-end luxury creators, you would give them a substantial amount in lieu of payment. Yeah. Then you could potentially have a contract.
Yeah.
And like, even if you gift, you should have strong contracts in place. You need someone to manage that. You don't just gift and hope that you'll get what you want out of it.
Yeah.
Even if they're gifting, there's no one managing the influencer program.
It is very much kind of like old school PR, and it's just not the same. So the way that our model works is obviously very different. So we have this marketplace that we've built, and the marketplace is formed of a web interface, which brands and agencies use, and then influencers use the app in their phones. And a brand will put a brief in through our website. It takes them like 5-10 minutes to write a brief. So it's a really short, concise brief, but it gives you all the opportunity to give like brand guidelines, visual inspiration with a mood board and that kind of stuff. That then gets approved, and then it lands in the app. And the influencers basically have access to all of the live campaigns that are relevant to them. So we flipped the traditional model on its head, where you sort of handpick influencers one by one and you reach out to them, purely because at scale, that's just not feasible. And what you often find is when people do it at scale, they end up just working with the same creators over and over again, because it's far easier for them to do that than to go and source new people. And also we found that a lot of the top tier influencers get all those opportunities because they're easier to find, because they've got more followers. But there are so many micro influencers now that are so relevant to brands and could really have an impactful either say in terms of like a recommendation or create beautiful content for them, that are easier to discover through tech platform.
And they tend to have higher engagement rates as well, often if you're a smaller creator.
Yeah, and that's because platforms like Facebook and Instagram, they favour the everyday people. I'm sure you know. So what we find is that, you know, the top tier influencers and the brands, they're the ones that are really impacted by these algorithm changes from Facebook. And when we actually had the algorithm change from chronological to more relevant content, we found that I think it was under 25,000 followers, your average engagement doubled.
It's amazing.
Which is incredible, because they're favouring these everyday people, the everyday user of their platform. And the brands and the top tier influencers were the ones that were all complaining, saying, oh no, my reach has dropped. And it's like, well, it's because you're being penalised because you've got a reach.
Also because there's often not that type of personal connection. So this is where we find YouTube creators tend to have higher engagement rates on Instagram, because you feel like you know them. Yeah. If you've watched someone's videos for years, you feel like you know them. But most Instagram creators it's hard to sometimes remember their names.
Yeah.
If you've never watched a video with them.
I would follow Kim Kardashian for the sake of it, right? But is what she posts about really relevant to me? No. Am I going to buy anything that she recommends? Probably not. If I was vegan, I'm not, because it is very hard, and I love dairy too much and everything good.
Cheese.
Bad for you. Yep. But if I was vegan and I was following a vegan chef with 5,000 followers, I'd be following that person not because they're really popular on Instagram. I'd be following them because they're really relevant to my interests. And am I going to follow their recommendations? Absolutely. Am I going to cook their recipes? Very likely. There's a very different relationship where people like to troll the big influencers and the celebrities, but with micro-influencers, you feel like you know them. You feel like you have this relationship with them, and you're rooting for them. You see it as a really positive thing, as opposed to people sort of selling out.
So you mentioned that on the app, you only get shown opportunities that are relevant to your niche. Do people self-declare niches? How does that work?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. So we vet influencers from a brand safety point of view. We don't vet influencers from you're a fashion influencer point of view, because that's subjective, right? So when you sign up to the app, you'll basically input all of your details, you'll type in your account information, and that's when we'll scan your account for all of those different lovely things like fake followers and engagement, that sort of stuff. And then even when you're in the platform, you get scanned automatically every 6 hours. So 4 times a day, we scan each account as well. But in addition to that, you'll select what your interests are. So we don't do super niche targeting in terms of, we only want mum influencers to see this, because we've got over 50,000 creators on the platform. But we'll push it to what's relevant to you in terms of your age, your gender, where you're based, and what your interests are, whether that's fashion, family, fitness, etc.
Once you find a campaign that suits you, you're a creator.
Yep.
What happens? What's the next step?
So you'd scroll through and say, for instance, I want to submit to Rimmel. I'll go in and read through the brief. I'll check out the mood board and see whether that's content that I could create and content that would fit with my audience. You check out all of the brand guidelines, the brief, where to get the product. So now I don't use Rimmel mascara, so I probably would either go and purchase it and try it for myself. But if you did already have that mascara at home, you would just go home, create that content, submit it through to the app, set your price, and then the brand would see that in their inbox. So we encourage influencers and creators to purchase every single product that they promote. And the reason why we believe that is if you're not willing to purchase it yourself and you're not already using it, you don't really have a right to then recommend that onto your followers.
Does that mean that big ticket items really suffer?
Yeah, usually it's a different type of brief. So for example, we did a big campaign with Land Rover. People didn't go out and buy new cars. That would have been...
Set your price £60,000.
I know. That would have been a bit too much, but it was for their 70th anniversary, and it was all about Land Rover being the car to have the journey, not necessarily being about the destination. And we had 200 people post, so I think they had over 400 submissions in 2 weeks globally. And there were these amazing images, videos, drone footage of people on these adventures with Land Rovers. And that wasn't just the Land Rovers they owned. It was also when people had road trips. So our whole vision as a business is to unlock the world's creativity, and like literally and metaphorically through phones. But the way we see that working is everyone has thousands of pictures and videos sitting in their camera roll, many of which already capture brands that they already know and love. And a great way for brands to get this volume of content for social is to tap into that content that their customers create or could create for them. So we do have a lot of camera roll content campaigns, so travel and stuff like that. But we can facilitate sampling if it's needed for high ticket items. It's just they would need to lean in with like a mock image of what they could create, and then the brand would message them to organise sending the product.
So when you go and purchase the product, Oh, and set your price. Do you give them an indication of what a fair price is?
Yes. So we have a rate card in the app.
The industry has a big issue with pricing standardization, which
I feel like a lot of, especially bigger influencers, they're just like, it's £5,000 for one post.
Yep. Especially once you cross the million. I think once you cross the million, it's like I get to set whatever I want to, and it's quite interesting. And it often depends on, we're seeing a lot of people for YouTube, it depends on what Squarespace has offered them in the past, because Squarespace has been so prolific, or what any brand has said to them. And so then they just take that as standard, and you're like, oh, but that's a very different campaign, it's a different type of brand, it's a different requirement, different industry.
It's a big issue, yeah. And now that we're coming into brands realizing they can license content, so we organize all of the licensing, we organize the contracts, the creators get rewarded again, we organize all of it for them. But I've had creators message me saying, hey, I've done this work separately from Tribe, and the brand now wants to license my content, but I don't have any idea what to price it as. And I'm a bit like, well, it's kind of hard for me to say because it's not through the app. This is what we would price it as, but there's a lot of different parts to it. So it's a big issue, but we've never really had that problem because we've given them this benchmark system, which is just based on reach, to be honest. Cool. And we give them the flexibility to dictate their own fees because there are different types of content
and different types of effort you go through to make the content.
Exactly, the price of the product. For travel campaigns, if it is camera roll content, really that should be a lot less expensive than if you've gone out, to buy a specific product and set something up for a really specific shoot.
Okay, and we're going to get to a controversial part here because a lot of creators have complained, but some love Tribe, some are really big advocates, some really struggle. Often if their content doesn't get chosen, those are the ones who struggle. So once they create and submit the content through the app, the brand only pays for the content it uses.
Yes. Right? And we do have to control that, because that's the really unique model of a marketplace, which I'd never experienced before, where you have your brands on one side and then the creators on the other, and you need a really fine-tuned balance and this equilibrium between the two, because the other thing is, if we get too many creators coming into the app and not enough brands, the creators are going to think, oh, there's no opportunities. If we get too many brands, they're going to think there's no creators. So we need to get that balance right for every market and every region. And obviously with our US launch, that's a big part of what we're doing. And from a creator point of view, we have to manage the volume of submissions each brand gets, because there are some campaigns in particular that just go off in the app. So we did a Topshop campaign recently. It was Topshop denim. Obviously, everyone owns Topshop denim.
Love Topshop denim.
Topshop denim is the best.
Sadly, this has become an ad for Topshop denim.
Hashtag ad. And they had 240 submissions overnight. So,
and how many did they want?
I think they purchased like 30 in the end. Okay. So we need to manage it because we don't want to discourage influencers. Yeah. And obviously from our perspective, selfishly as an app, if influencers feel really disheartened and don't feel like they're getting the opportunities,
they'll leave.
Yeah, they'll leave. They can just delete the app. So we need to really balance it.
It's also a really interesting industry because there's so much internal discussion based on influencers who often seem as though they're living by themselves and quite disjointed, but actually in some ways, like the way they interact at events or Facebook groups, it's like a union. Like they discuss everything with each other. They meet all the time. Like if you get a bad reputation with creators, it can be like a death knell to an agency or a platform.
Yeah, it is one of those things that could be a real big risk. We're very sort of humble and transparent. We're very ethical as a business. So we're not, even with like influencers that come in and they have fake followers, for instance, right? So we'll block them from the app. We won't let them use it. But we always give them a cooling off period. So after 30 days, they can come back and reapply. And if they've cleansed their account, they can come in. And so what we find, and actually
it's near impossible to do.
It is possible. We actually, when you go into the app and you've been blocked, it links you to a blog post that we've got that shows you how to cleanse your account of ghost followers. And that could work. It depends on what they've done though, doesn't it? It depends on, if they've bought every single thing in the planet, then probably not. But it is a very manual, tedious process. About 86% of the time when they've been blocked, they'll come back after that 30-day period, which is really, really strong. And I think actually in the App Store, we've got the best rating. That's awesome. Albeit that, people will come in and they will want to shout and complain because they haven't been picked by a brand. But ultimately, we want really good content creators who are actual customers of these brands. And at the end of the day, if you've gone and you've bought a Burger King burger and took a beautiful picture and submitted that through, if Burger King didn't want to work with me, I've still got a delicious burger I would have wanted to have. And that's as simple as it should be. If you're actually
a consumer advocate, yes, which is what you're trying to go for. Yeah, I completely agree. Cool. And then what proportion on average of content gets accepted?
So it's usually 1 in 3.
That's all right. So don't be disheartened if it's try number 4.
It is definitely what you put in, you get out. And our best creators in terms of the volume of wins they've had are also the ones who've had the highest amount of declines. And it's because they're persistent and they can see the potential. And you do get better each time. Brands give you feedback. You then understand what you need to do next time.
And is it normally like a tick box, like not appropriate, not high quality enough? Or is it actually written feedback?
It did start out a bit like that. We gave them sort of standard responses that they could use. And we found that from a time perspective, they were just using them. Yeah. But there's so much more merit in actually giving constructive feedback. So brands do actually go in and message them. We've got a messaging function through the platform. We do have a number of sort of templated responses that can talk to those specific points. There's loads of them now, so they can choose something that's bespoke. But we often find the brands go in and do actually choose something that's...
Because I think one of the biggest issues is scaling communication. Even the agencies is scaling communication in a way that is authentic and very tailored and very bespoke to creators. We were having a chat with Amy from Mumsnet, and she was saying that brands didn't know how old the kids were of the creators they were trying to approach. So they'd ask people with teenagers to work on a campaign for toddlers. And it's you have to be very bespoke and very careful. Yeah. And so it must be a real issue scaling communication in an effective way.
Absolutely. And I think there's this misconception that it's sort of pay as you go, you only buy what you like and you can just decline the ones that you don't, and that's it. That's not what we're trying to encourage at all. People think that it's a very transactional type way of doing it, but we're just trying to make it more efficient for you to scale from a workflow point of view. Instead of having to go to the communications team, to the agency, to the talent agent, to XYZ, all the way through to the creator and then back. What we're actually doing is just streamlining it through the app. So we do a lot of these things, and we actually update the app every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks we come out with new features, either for the influencers, which is all based on feedback, or for the brands to make it more efficient, more transparent and robust. But the communications thing, just having that messaging tool in the platform is amazing, because instead of brands just going, nope, I don't like it, they can go, oh, actually, we'd really love to work with you, but there's something in the background of that post that needs to be cropped out, or you've made a spelling mistake in the copy, or could you reshoot it and do it like XYZ? And by giving constructive feedback, creators are more receptive to brands and they're more willing to improve on their content.
I think often it's a lack of transparency is what annoys creators. It's because they don't get the feedback. They love that they get involved in these campaigns. They love to be approached by brands, but then they don't get the feedback they need. So of course they get offended. Whereas if it's hi, we really loved this didn't go so well, but if you could tweak it, we'll work together in the future. That's 100% better for them anyway.
Absolutely.
When we run campaigns with YouTube creators, it tends to be because YouTube content is a lot of effort to make, and because we can help scale, but we scale it to an extent so it'll be 10 creators per campaign. Whereas for you, we've done 30, but 10 is kind of the more normal number. For you guys, how many creators do brands want on average for a campaign?
So it really varies on the campaign to campaign and brand to brand. We've got lots of campaigns where we're working with hundreds of influencers in one go, and that might be brands that want to make a really big statement or a lot of noise about something. And then you might have brands who just need a few assets, for their new website, or for this new product they've got, but they want different types of assets that aren't staged photo shoots. So it really varies from campaign to campaign.
And do you mention that in the brief, so creators have kind of an idea of how much competition there's going to be? So if in the brief it's like, they only want 3 images for a website or 10 images, do you ever, so that people don't go out and, I don't know,
and swarm a campaign? No, but we'll always put a time scale on a brief so creators can see how long they've got. We don't give them those kind of stats. Sometimes people ask me if they can see the budget for a brand, and I'm like, no, because then you just run the risk of people putting silly prices on things.
Yeah, this is often because they'll see their portion and not see all the other costs that need to come out of that, and like how many other creators there are.
Exactly. They might think that's for one creator, and that's the thing. Technically, a brand could come in and they could spend £5,000 on one creator. We do have some of those come into the platform, but it's all subjective. It's all completely down to the brand. No, so we give them timescales around it, and we'll pause a campaign after a certain period of time. But really, the best creators are in the app every day, up to 29 minutes, scrolling through campaigns. They're favoriting the ones that they like, and they're going down to the shops with their shopping lists of Tribe products and buying them, shooting content, and they know that it's fast on-demand content, so that's what they need to do.
So Keith Weed at Cannes last year said that influence marketing as an industry really needed to professionalise. People needed to manage workflows. We needed to challenge fake followers. We needed to work with professional influencers, essentially, in a professional way. Yeah. And then a lot of people completely agreed with this and stepped up their processes and stepped up their specialisms as well. I think that's one of the reasons we had already specialized in YouTube, but we cut it down to creator campaigns. This is what we're really good at. Yeah. So the industry, I think, really listened to that. And then he left Unilever in April. Yeah. And announced an investment in Tribe's latest $7.5 million round.
Yes, so very exciting.
How's that feel for you?
It was bizarre, to find out about that. But it's really humbling, and it's actually really relieving, because it's okay, so one of the most influential marketers in this space is validating our model. We're on the right track. And that's really the best thing about it, to be honest. It's just really having that stamp of approval that we're going in the right direction. Yeah, and I think him speaking on behalf of Unilever, that what they were saying is, we are investing in this space heavily, but we're only going to do it with the ones that are really transparent and effectively really robust in terms of preventing these fraudulent influencers.
So next, really bit of exciting news for Tribe, and for you personally as well, which I think is quite exciting. It's exciting, I've said that a million times, is US expansion. Yes. So I think 20% of your creators are already based in the US.
Yes, you've done really good research.
I mean, just such a geek. Just an avid fan. No, so go on, how do you feel about the US? You're moving, how are you feeling?
It's amazing. And in all honesty, we didn't really imagine going to the States initially, because there's so much competition out there. There are so many platforms. I think there's over 1,000 platforms in the influencer space. So we were actually looking at more sort of less populated markets, like Asia. And what we actually found was that it made a really natural fit. So we had 20% of our creators, 20% of our brands were coming from the US. So we were working in the US already, just organically.
Yeah, we find that as well. We're running US campaigns, paying US fees with US creators. So you're like, oh, we're technically doing this. All our software works. Why are we not in the US yet? Yeah. And it's because it is a saturated market. Yeah. But also, I think sometimes you're at a stage where you have this investment. It's time to take the plunge.
Yeah, and I think naturally conversations there actually took us by surprise. So there's so many platforms, but it's amazing. Every single conversation we have, everyone's saying, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen anything like this. Wow. So for us, that again is kind of validating our model and the fact that we do have a fit in the market. So it's definitely a big step, personally and tribally. Yeah. Tribally. I mean, that is kind of both in one, because I feel like I'm personally invested in Tribe. but yeah, so I'm moving over to sort of kickstart everything in terms of brand and agency partnerships. We've already been doing a lot of great work already. So we launched earlier this year, and we've been working with a lot of Unilever brands, brands like Abercrombie & Fitch, Bacardi, Hershey's, P&G. So we've already had a really good start, but I'm really excited personally to be in the Big Apple.
Moving to Big Apple, challenge is going to be probably setting rates because budgets are higher. What other challenges do you foresee?
We're still really in that learning and discovery phase. So budgets are way higher. The country itself is just
Vast.
huge. Yeah. So there's a lot of creators. We're finding there's a lot of bigger creators over there in terms of reach. A lot of brands are still working with top tier creators.
Yes, we see it's based on reach rather than engagement, which is mad. Like, it's just, I'm amazed in some ways the UK market is more savvy than the US market, which I think means you're probably up to the challenge, but just the new challenge is going to be like how to scale a community.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny because we've been saying this message, and I've been, I sort of entered the UK market when it was just turning to micro about 3.5 years ago. And now I'm going to the US, which is, the most sophisticated market in the world. And actually, we're going back to that same messaging of this is why you should use micro over macro, and not necessarily over, just alongside in terms of a more holistic approach. So, it's really interesting. It's exciting. I've definitely got my work cut out for me. It's going to be a challenge, and it is already, proving to be not a challenge as such, but a real growth opportunity for myself and the business. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Of course, there has been, for news, the Keith Weed of this year's Cannes has just come out and talked about influence marketing. Yeah. So, Young-hee Lee, who is the CMO globally of Samsung, has just come out and said, and I want to get this quote right because we hate when people are misquoted. Yeah. Has said that she's skeptical of influence marketing, and that buying influencers with money is not going to be sustainable. This was in the context of being on a panel about Gen Z at Cannes, where she said, this generation wants brands to be more real, authentic, and organic. The more I encounter our local marketing programs, and sometimes I see huge budgets for influence marketing, no, sometimes it's necessary. And I think this is the key of what she's getting at. I think everyone's going to jump on, our influence marketing budget's too high. But the key of what she's getting at to me is, but it's more a real person, your neighbor, that we're looking for. She wants to create communities and cultural spaces where you can have a real person create content that's actually engaging. Yeah. So, yes. More experiential influence marketing, more authenticity. How do you feel about it?
How many times has authenticity been said in the last couple of years? It's crazy. We're just rephrasing authenticity and real recommendations.
Every time I hear authenticity in a pitch meeting, I try not to laugh, and then it's really awkward because I'm sat there trying not to laugh and a client's looking at me like, why are you laughing? And it's really bad. But I think often it's because what is authentic, the benchmarks and change, or not the benchmarks, the goalposts change. Yeah. So like, before, holding up a product on your Instagram feed saying, I love this product, was authentic maybe 3 years ago. But now if someone does it, you're like, God, why are they doing this? Why are they recommending teeth whitening? That's never authentic. Yeah. So I think they're just trying to get the experience deeper and deeper. This was recently a big issue in the last 6 months because of Scarlett London and the Listerine post with the tortillas that she pretended were pancakes, which I think was actually the most inauthentic part of that post, was pretending that tortillas were pancakes. Authenticity has moved from featuring a product in a post to actually engaging with it or doing something that embodies its brand values. Yeah. And I think the bar is just so much higher and brands have to be so much more careful. And also moving beyond just aspirational Instagram content. Have you seen this a lot in the content that gets submitted to Tribe? Has it shifted from being very aspirational to a bit more authentic?
It's kind of always been that way because we're trying to tap into these customers anyway. And that's why we don't heavily filter through who the campaigns go to, because there are so many people that are actual customers of these brands that brands would never think of. So, for example, we had an influencer focus group recently, And this girl who's like a really cool lifestyle, sort of fashion influencer, she was like, oh my God, I saw that cleaning product. It was called, I think it was called like Blitz That Mold. But she was like, oh my God, it was amazing. I tried it in my bathroom and everything was instantly spick and span. And I was like, wow, like I would never have paired you with that brand. So, you know, we're getting actual people to try out these products beforehand, and the creators are loving it as well. You know, they're not forced into anything. On the Samsung thing, I think they're absolutely making a point, you know, about not investing in these sort of big, massive celebrity and sort of top tier influencers.
Because they had Casey as like the creator in chief for so long. Casey Neistat's incredible, and I think he's great, but he's become the celebrity. Micro-influencers should be used as kind of the advocates.
I think it's quite easy for a brand like Samsung to say that because they've got so many people using their phones and their products. They've got the budgets to be able to put amazing spaces in amazing central London locations where people can easily access it, and they can make it really fun and engaging for people to interact with. So I think it's a really clever way for them to kind of pivot. But I don't think that necessarily means that all brands
should stop
and go and do that.
Yes, so many brands aren't anywhere near on that level with Samsung. No. They don't have any advocacy or any presence through creators or Instagram. So I guess that makes sense. For us, it's quite natural as a fit. So we did an event when a travel brand launched a new mode of transport, and it had like 25 creators there. We had a like crazy, completely changed the venue. Like we had a silent disco on a bus.
Oh my God.
Like it was amazing. It was very, very different to anything they'd ever done before. And it's the type of thing we love to work on because we get to do something super creative and bring influencers in and YouTube creators and listen to their perspectives. And so it sounds like Samsung has the luxury of going down that level. And that's the type of thing that when I was at YouTube, because we got to be a tech company that experimented and had budget to experiment, that was the type of event or the type of kind of space creation that I got excited by. So it makes sense. I think it is going to be harder to scale. So there is definitely still space for them applying to that challenge, or even doing invites through someone like Tribe would be interesting for them.
Well, even, you know, just actual users of Samsung phones submitting, you know, we've worked with like Sony and I think Dell as well, and we're actually tapping into actual people who already use these products and love them every single day and can share content through that. And it's really easy and it comes across a lot more natural that way. And what we're doing is really sort of from the grassroots up. So, you know, it's not telling one big, massive, you know, top tier influencer, you have to hold up this Samsung phone and you have to use the phone for 6 months exclusively. Or, you know, you have to take a picture of the phone on another phone. I've seen that in briefs before. You know, it's actually just calling out to their actual customers in the brief. You know, if you already use a Samsung phone, show us your best pics. And it's so easy. And it's, you know, it's the type of thing that creators would really lean into. So I think it's kind of what we've been saying all along.
It's like have your flagship moments like Google Pixel's store in Piccadilly. Like have your flagship moments where you bring the very lucky people who can get there and who are based in London or who can spread that message, bring them to that experiential event and try to amplify it, and then have a much broader campaign based on software like Tribe where you're kind of showing user-generated content from people who are really your brand advocates.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the Shot on iPhone campaign. It's huge and it's iconic, and I think that it's so simple and people really try to overcomplicate it quite a lot, but the simple things do seem to land a lot better.
The other interesting part of that is when Young-Hee Lee mentioned expanding budgets. I think that doesn't mean those budgets will not go to influence marketing, but I think it means they will get cut up into different marketing areas that all include influencers. So there might be a budget for a space or a physical event that will then have influencer spend allocated to it. So I don't think that means the industry is going to die before anyone says it again. The bubble is not going to burst. It does not mean spend is going to stop. It means spend will just be reallocated to really exciting places. And that's what brands should be doing. Like Marks and Spencer's design a shoe and then launch a shoe. That's amazing. Like that type of personal involvement in campaigns is what's really cool and where the industry should be headed to.
And it's diversification. You know, you can't put all of your budget into one huge influencer and just think, yep, that's it, I've done my influencer marketing for this campaign.
Tick. Yep.
It's really, it does sort of filtrate into every area, and it's the exciting thing about the industry right now. Even I think about the agencies we work with all types of agencies, from PR, digital, media, creative. It doesn't sit in one place and doesn't sit in one campaign, which means that the opportunity for brands to be really cool and creative is really there. So I think that's really exciting.
Right, so bit of news really excited about. In Campaign magazine today, an influence marketing platform outed a lot of Love Island contestants as having fake followers on Instagram. Yeah. And I think that's very controversial for a couple of reasons. It implies that a lot of the fake followers, if they were bought after these people went into the villa, which means they weren't running their own accounts anyway. Yeah. So it's kind of implying that ITV did it.
In my opinion, it's a bit of a sort of PR stunt gone wrong. I think it's quite hard to quantify whether they're actually fake or not. There are so many different touch points that could indicate that. From what I've seen in the article, it looks at different geographical locations, which, to be honest, could actually be very genuine depending on the celebrity and where their following is based. But ultimately, like you've said, what's happened to their social accounts since they've gone into the villa is beyond their control.
Yeah. They're definitely not buying fake followers from
the villa.
They've got other things to do. They're trying to build their relationships and fall in love. Yeah.
It's natural for people's reach to just absolutely go through the roof whenever they go on reality TV.
Yeah. Firstly, we are going to hype auditor these creators. So we are using a bit of software that is different to the platform that outed them, and we're going to actually look at who is engaging with their content. What's interesting about Hype Auditor, who are one of the who are a lovely other platform we work with, they do it based on engagement. Yes. So they will see if engagement is fake, which is the more important thing. We're going to look at the most popular account first, Tommy Fury, who is a boxer. He's in Love Island. He's just crossed 1 million followers. The thing that's really interesting here is that his audience quality score is what most people tend to go on, and it's 55. So it implies that the people engaging with his content are actually real. So 55 to 70 is normal. They anticipate that it's a giveaway, but that's because he's grown so fast. As you can see here, from people who actually engage with his content, the top 5 countries are UK, US, Spain, Ireland, and South Africa, who are all very authentic countries that are likely to engage with Love Island content. Here we're going to talk through audience type. So real people is 37.7%. That sounds about fair. Influencers 2%. Mass followers and suspicious accounts are the interesting ones here. Mass followers is accounts that follow more than 1,500 people, and that would often follow or unfollow. And the really cool thing is that brands fit into this, and people who are trying to engage with Love Island accounts to try and grow their own following. So this could actually be him being a victim of his own success. Yeah. So it could be brands trying to follow and engage with Love Island creators. It could be Love Island meme accounts trying to engage with Love Island creators and get their own following. It could be Love Island celebrity accounts. It could be fake accounts trying to kind of siphon off his following. So I think this actually implies that it's not fake followers that he's bought, but it's people trying to use these Love Island contestants to build their own brand or their own Instagram following.
These sorts of people who are very new to the public eye, they're very hot in today's sort of news. They're going to attract this sort of attention online and on social. Yes. So it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that they would be attracting all of these sorts of accounts.
And the other thing is, if you look at his growth, it does say here that Hype Auditor thinks it's organic. So there's no incentivized following patterns detected, which I think is quite important. And then also I want to highlight here, the engagement is 8.52%. That's ridiculous. That's like nearly, it's 7 times other creators of his size. That's mad.
All the brands watching this are going to be like, oh my God, we got to work with Tommy.
Yeah, you don't get good engagement rates. Okay, with Anton, he does have a higher actually audience quality score, but he does have followers in India and Brazil and Mexico. So that's interesting. Again, it might not be his fault. He might have become a meme in these countries. Yeah. something he said might have been picked up in the press.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I think one of the comments in the article was that a lot of these bot farms are based in those sorts of countries, and actually there are hundreds of millions of Instagram users in those countries. So how can you say it's a bot just because they have followers in those countries?
First thing, think about engagement. Secondly, work out how they would actually buy the fake followers and when, because the only way, if you're saying that it's a systemic thing across all the Love Island contestants, that implies ITV, and I don't think they would do that in this climate.
No.
And thirdly, smacks of influencer demonization. Like typical, look at these people doing nothing apart from being attractive and posting online. Why do they deserve to be famous? Let's tear them down.
I think people are too quick to demonize them, when actually if they were in that situation, would they do the same? Yeah. But potentially.
If they even did buy followers, which they don't. Yeah. It doesn't look like they did.
No.
Cool. Right. Quickfire questions. What's your favourite YouTube channel?
I don't really look at long form content apart from podcasts.
Favourite podcast?
Goop.
Favourite Instagram account?
My guilty pleasure at the moment is Mrs. Hinch. And I really like Chessie King. I think she's doing some really great stuff around body positivity, which is really good.
Favourite cuisine?
Mexican.
Favourite drink?
Tequila.
Phone or text?
Phone.
Your favourite advertising campaign?
Anything to do with Bumble. I think they're so good. Their campaigns really make statements. I don't know if you saw the Serena Williams Super Bowl advert. That actually gave me shivers.
A brand that you actually like?
Apple.
The worst fad that you've ever seen on YouTube?
I've always somehow and I get fed these what I eat in a day videos, and I just think, you don't eat that in a day.
If you could be any animal, what would you be?
A monkey.
Your next holiday destination?
Mykonos.
Your favourite social network?
Instagram.
Your most disliked social network?
I actually want to say Facebook.
Dark one. Last time you cried?
I watched Rocket Man the other day. I did cry that.
That's supposed to be really good. Right, so we've discussed a hell of a lot today. And I hope we've kind of helped educate people on micro-influencers and scaling campaigns and where kind of different platforms and different creators fit. Yeah. I think there's still a lot of space, still a lot of growth.
And I feel like there's so much more to uncover, and talk about.
What did Emily say that you found most interesting? Or if you hate Tribe, tell us in the comments.
Oh, please don't.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That was so awkward.